I don't want you to dance like no one's watching. I want you to dance like you know that there's a million people watching and they're judging you, but you don't give a shit. Welcome to Trigger Proof. Another episode, but this time we are live in Barcelona. And for those of you watching on replay or on the YouTube channel, welcome once again. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. Speaking of trigger proof, now what I wanted to remind you of is trigger proof does not mean triggerless. It means being responsible for our triggers. It means expanding that space between stimulus and response and taking responsibility for our reactivity. Why is that important? Well, not only does it have an impact on your relationships, and not only does it have an impact on the way that you're going to lead at work, but it actually also has an impact on your health. Because little do we know that these triggers that come up are past events that are unresolved traumas, and without taking responsibility, we are at the mercy of externals. Now, we're live here in Barcelona, and I've been traveling all over the world. I just came from Paris last week. I was in Paris doing this show at the chiropractic clinic of Dr. Sebastian Fuentes. Today, I'm at my buddy Alessandro's office, and it's interesting because there's noise coming up from above, and I have no idea where it's coming from and what to do, but because this is a live show, I'm committed to doing it anyway. So, for those of you who are tuning in for the very first time, my name is Dr. Nima Rahmany, and I've been a chiropractor for the last 18 years, feeling frustrated as to the not being able to reach the root cause of why patients were coming in to see me in the first place. They're coming in with primarily stress-related disorders, and I'm adjusting them, making a difference, because chiropractic care is a critical component in transforming stress. The problem is that we're not getting to the root cause of the root cause, which usually when you go and ask yourself, if you were to check in and take a moment in an inventory and ask yourself about the root cause of your stresses, they're usually relational. They're usually relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship or whether it is a business relationship or your social network or your family. Some sort of a breakdown in the relationship dynamics are the underlying root cause of your stress. And when we go further upstream in exploring these relationships, it all has to do with the relationship with yourself and your positioning and your purpose in this universe. And so, long time ago, I gave myself some permission to go upstream and to teach people life skills for a stressful world, teach my patients life skills for a stressful world. And it was so fulfilling and rewarding for me that I threw my hat over the fence and I said, I want to be a teacher that helps transform lives from the inside out. In other words, your inner state is what's responsible for what happens on the outside. So today, we have some noise coming in from the outside, and you're going to have to bear with me if somebody barges in the door. It's how you can tell it's a live show. So today we're going to be talking about how to not care so much about what other people think of us. Now, this is an interesting topic of conversation because I had just come from Paris, where I had introduced my mentor, Dr. John Demartini. This time we are actually sharing the stage, and one of the quotes that he shared with me that was the most meaningful for me was, when the voice and the vision on the inside becomes louder and more profound than the opinions on the outside, you've begun to master your life. Now, what does that mean, being a master of your own life? Take a moment and ask yourself what that would mean to you. To me, the most impactful way that I know that I'm mastering my own life is not being governed by externals. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is so addicted and running towards acknowledgement, praise, and running away from criticism. In other words, addicted to praise and avoidant of criticism is being governed by externals. And when the voice and the vision on the inside becomes louder and more profound than the opinions on the outside, we've begun to master our own life. Now, that's the goal, isn't it? How often, if you can take an inventory of your life, how often is it that we are governed by what other people think of us? We feel rejection, we feel criticism, we feel blame, and we react and we run. And basically, it runs our entire lives. So much so that we don't actually become our true selves. And we hide our true nature, we put a mask on, and we pretend to be what other people want us to be, what we perceive other people want us to be, blocking our authenticity, and we're not able to express our true nature and have breakdowns in intimacy with others because we don't even know who we are. Cooley, who was a sociologist, an American sociologist, who coined the looking glass theory that you might want to look up, which basically he said, I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think that you think that I am. Let me say that one more time. I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think that you think that I am. In other words, we as a society, quite often, it's very common that we build our own personal identity based on what we perceive others think about us, others think and feel about us. Now, this is across the board. I've traveled across the world. I've spoken to groups in Australia, in Europe. This year I'm going to be going to South America, and I know for a fact that it's the exact same constraint every single time. People are constrained in their lives because of the fear of what other people are going to think about them. Now, I want to talk a little bit more and find out why. I want you to just kind of look into your life right now and see where that shows up in your life. Perhaps it's in your relationship. Perhaps it is in your business, in your career, with clients. We definitely have clients that reach out to us, and that was, last couple weeks ago, a gentleman who works in sales. This was his biggest constraint, was that his fear of rejection, his fear of what other people are going to perceive him as. If you're in network marketing, we have a lot of people that work with us who do network marketing. That's a big one, a fear of rejection. What are other people going to think of us? And I have here Dr. Russell Kennedy, who's a neuroscientist, who I'd like to invite on in just a moment to share with us why this is such a major constraint. It's built in our DNA. I want to invite you right in. Russ, Dr. Russ, hold on one second. Let me see if I can put on these. So Dr. Russell Kennedy, neuroscientist. Why the F do we care so much about what other people think of us from a neuroscience perspective? Let's just lay it all out there. The people who are watching, they can resonate with this. So why is it? Why is this across the board? Every person who reaches out to work with us, everyone in the audience that I'm speaking to, why is this such a major constraint in their lives?
Okay. It's a major constraint in our lives because evolutionarily, we needed to be connected to our tribe to survive. And we still have that Stone Age brain in a digital world. So we still have that compulsion to fit in, be okay, have a position of authority or at least recognition in our community. So that's hardwired into us. What's happened now is that we have social media. So everybody puts their outside life on social media. This is me going to Barcelona and doing a talk with my mentor. This is me going to, or Paris and then to Barcelona and then Amsterdam, So people see your outside life and they assume that that's your inside life as well. And it's dangerous this is, social media is dangerous that way, because you're always going, well, I can't compare to that. I can't, match up with that kind of thing. And then it makes you feel worse about yourself. And then when you feel worse about yourself, you go into these, judgments of yourself and that kind of thing. And then you try and reaffirm, how great you are. So you post your vacation pics and how, you've been buffing up for the beach and all that. And it just becomes this one-upmanship throughout all of social media. And now we've become this plastic, a bunch of organisms that have to put our best foot forward, for fear that if we don't have our best foot forward, we're not going to be accepted in the group and we're not going to be connected. And if we don't have that social connection, our nervous system is going to become dysregulated, and then everything kind of falls from there.
Why is it, though, that it's so in our DNA to be accepted by other people? Why, like, this rejection, this is like primitive, because the clients that we work with, when they're dealing with rejection, it's like a visceral reaction. It's primitive. It's like this disentanglement, disengagement from society. Doesn't that actually mean death to our primitive hunter-gatherer tribes?
Absolutely, yeah. So if we're not connected to our group, or worse, we're thought of as less than, and we don't want you in the group, that essentially did mean death, because you wouldn't have any other place to go. So we are hardwired to need connection. Now, there's a difference between needing connection and wanting connection. And I think what happens with us is we get, sucked into this sort of plastic environment of social media and one-upmanship, that we start thinking that that's how you need to be connected, is to appear like you've got it all together. Like, I'm going to appear like I've got a huge swimming pool and I live in this great mansion in Florida with all this, and then you're just as likely to be rejected by people out of envy or jealousy than you are to be accepted. But we think that if we project this image of being these wonderful people, that we're going to be accepted for that. And it really comes down to being genuine. Our nervous system can detect if someone else is genuine or they're not. And when you're not genuine, you're not going to get accepted. So we get into this loop of being disingenuous by posting all these wonderful photos of ourselves on Facebook, and then expecting to be connected, and then expecting everyone to adopt that paradigm or benchmark as to how you become accepted. So we're in this sort of losing game where we lose our authenticity as people, and our nervous system becomes dysregulated outside of that sense of authenticity in ourselves. And then it makes us go farther and farther into this plastic world of making yourself appear important so you can feel connected.
Thank you very much, Dr. Russ. I really appreciate that. This is primitive. It's in our DNA. In other words, we're not going to get rid of it, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to talk a little bit about how we can override that. Thank you so much, Russ. Stay on board, and we'll call upon you in a bit. So it's in our DNA. We need society in order to survive. I'm going to put this down right here. We need society in order to survive. We have an interdependence, and the perception of being rejected means death to our primitive days. So we are hardwired to be approved of and liked socially. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when that preoccupation becomes such an obsession that it clouds our authenticity, and that blocks our ability to actually be real with ourselves. We then end up not really knowing who we are, and we become dissociated from ourselves, because the operating belief becomes, who do I have to become in this moment in order to be liked? And so I know exactly what that's like. And in my journey, it all started off with wanting approval from my parents. And so for me to break the subordination and become a chiropractor was something that was outside of acceptance from my family acceptance. Now, as I transcended that and then became, successful in chiropractic, there wasn't a problem with approval with family dynamics. What ended up happening was, as I started climbing the ladder within my chiropractic profession, I started noticing that chiropractors are like crabs in a bucket. So when they see someone climbing and leading, they want to start jabbing and cutting down. And so I would start doing these rap songs in chiropractic seminars, and there was a subcategory of chiropractors, mostly from the Midwestern United States, who had a big problem with me wanting to do these rap songs, and they thought it was unprofessional and it was not becoming of a professional. So there was some challenge there. So every step of the way, I've observed that there was some sort of a resistance and a rejection that I was having to face on this climb throughout my career and throughout life. And so what I discovered was every patient that was coming in to see me, every client was dealing with the same thing. There was some sort of a subordination. What would other people think? And so it's not really, what I discovered is it's not really, and here's the key, it's not really the subordination of others, it's not really the fear of disapproval of others that people had a problem with. It was that when there was rejection, it exposed a part of themselves that they were not loving. That there was a part and an incomplete within themselves that the public rejection, the public criticism was exposing, which the individual could not handle. Now I'm going to say it again in another way. When you reject me, it's not your rejection of me I have such a problem with. It's the fact that your rejection exposes the part of me that feels not good enough, that I'm not able to handle. And so the way that we counteract this, the way that we solve this dilemma, usually it comes in a process that I call an intimacy upgrade. So this is, if you've watched this show before, this is pretty much what I go through each and every time, but it's worth repeating. Now, you might not be able to see it on the live stream, but you'll definitely be able to see it a little bit more clear on the YouTube channel, because we get it all chopped up and edited. But let me go over it a little bit. The way that you overcome this, the way that you get to the level of becoming more connected within yourself, pretty much the intimacy upgrade really is the path to self-love. It really is the path to self-love, because that's the solution to this problem. If you really want to go upstream and solve this riddle at its root cause of its root cause, it all comes back to loving yourself. So how do we do that? The first process, the first thing that we do is in the foundation. You must un-F your nervous system. You must completely take a dysregulated nervous system that has you being anxious, that has your digestive system not working, that has you not breathing properly, that has you not sleeping properly because you're so tweaked up and dysregulated. You must learn the tools of unfucking your nervous system, of regulating a dysregulated nervous system. And that takes moment-to-moment consciousness. There's chiropractic care, nutrition, there's breath work, there is setting your life up with a series of habits and rituals, learning meditation and attunement, and living your life according to your highest values. When you do all of those things, I believe it's episode number 2 when we talk about unfucking your nervous system. When you do all of those things right, you're now centered in your body, and here's the key, you feel safe in your body. A lot of times, one of the clients I was seeing, I just met along the way, a good buddy of mine actually, he says, I don't feel safe in my body. And when I checked him as a chiropractor, his nervous system was completely dysregulated. So if you have a dysregulated nervous system, you're constantly run by externals, seeking pleasure, avoiding pain. Your habits are pretty much in the driver's seat, and you don't really have regulation. You're constantly run by externals, running towards praise, running away from criticism. But when you clear that, the next part of this is you must clear your past resentments and regrets. See, the rejection that you're fearing isn't just starting right now. It didn't just start right now. It actually has come from a long, long time ago, and it's unresolved past resentments, breakups that you haven't really cleared as far as emotional charge and resentment. There's guilt and there's shame from your past. And if you don't clear that, you are walking around and it's kind of like you're walking around with these wounds, these physical wounds. It's like you're walking around and you're bumping into everything and you're re-injuring yourself. And rejection is a very painful, visceral, emotional wound. It actually feels physiological. If you can recall a time where you felt rejected, you feel it physically in your body. The next thing that you want to do is learn how to dance with your dark passenger. This is ego and shadow work. This is consistent awareness of your thoughts, and when they go in the direction of constraint, you want to catch them and turn them into possibility. You want to expose what you're ashamed of. You want to consistently, constantly turn your thoughts and your intentions towards possibility rather than the I'm not good enough, I'm not, I'm broken, I'm not enough. All of those feelings and those interpretations that come up as the voice of what I call the voice of your dark passenger. You must learn how to curb that and make consciousness of your thoughts a full-time job, which is exhausting at first, but eventually it becomes second nature, where you start aiming your thoughts consistently towards possibility, towards your greatness, towards your capability. And so it takes some work to do that. And this part is an ongoing process. In other words, you never are absolved from the responsibility of this consciousness work. This is basically what we call consciousness work. And if you do this right, you develop a sense of presence. You are now able to be present with the person that's in front of you. You are now, instead of being a victim to your past, that's constantly running your life, you now have a sense of understanding of that other person. And once you do this part right, you now have an understanding of self. In other words, you're not so damn mean to yourself. You're not constantly, as Dr. Russ talks about, judging, abandoning, blaming, and shaming yourself, because that's what the dark passenger does. It's an acronym that he made up. It's called JABS. You judge yourself, abandon yourself, blame, and shame yourself. And that's the dark passenger. What you turn the jabs into understanding when you get that right. And when you've cleared your nervous system and you're regulated, and you've learned how to dance with your dark passenger, you have a sense of fulfillment, of safety in your skin, of authenticity. I remember driving here, last year. It was a really difficult time for me because this was where I came up with this whole process of the intimacy upgrade. This is what I actually had to live it, because my nervous system was screwed. I was completely a victim to my past, and I was really being hard on myself consistently. And I was just in the cab coming from the airport in Barcelona today, and just noticing, and I was connected with my breath, and I was noticing how safe I felt in my body compared to where I was even 1 year ago. I was noticing how safe I felt in a completely foreign land, how grateful I felt, how fulfilled I felt, how understanding I was of myself and my journey that got me here, and understanding of all of the people that I at once was playing victim to. It's magical what happens. That's why I call it an upgrade to your intimacy, because you feel more connected to yourself. And when you're more connected to yourself, you're not so wound up as to the perceptions of other people. And so aside from all of this, to upgrade your intimacy, we require an up level of empathic communication. We got to learn how to first empathize with ourselves, which is a big quantum leap for many people, and then to learn how to empathize with other people. And this can't happen without a commitment and a community. So the one-on-one model of therapy doesn't actually work. It's a broken system. It's been very well documented now that we require community to co-regulate. And when you get all of this right, you've upgraded your intimacy. And you now have a field of play, a laboratory where you can actually transform that relationship with yourself so that you can then transform the relationship with others and start to up-level this whole concept of caring so much about what other people think. Dr. Russ, I want you to share with us a little bit over the impact of this. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. We're in. Good. The impact of this whole process on your nervous system of dysregulation to regulated, from a victim to victor, and from beating yourself up constantly to actually being connected with yourself. Can you talk a little bit about what, neurologically, the journey that we must go through from unconscious to conscious so that we can actually heal from the inside out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess your level of connection is really dictated by your nervous system. If your nervous system is in fight or flight, you'll trigger certain parts of your brain that are active in survival. And those parts that are active in survival aren't necessarily, or usually aren't, involved in connection. So if you're being chased by a lion, you're not really interested in making an emotional connection with your best friend. You're just trying to escape from the lion. So without having that regulated nervous system, you can't learn to be connected anymore, because the circuits, the social engagement system circuit in your brain, the ventral vagus, as Stephen Porges calls it, the social vagus nerve that involves connecting with other people and being able to be regulated by them, and being able to regulate yourself using that vagus nerve, the biggest nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system. You need to be out of fight or flight to be able to do that. And I think we're chronically in this state of fight or flight that we're not even aware of. And then when we're not aware of it, we can't connect.
And Russ, if I'm in a constant state of fight or flight, doesn't it make sense that I'm constantly caring about what other people are saying to me, what other people are doing? Like this fight or flight actually creates this sense of separation from me and you, right? So I'm constantly looking what other people are doing. I am obsessed with what other people are thinking about me when I'm in fight or flight, right?
Yeah, because basically you're looking at the confirmation bias. If you feel afraid, anything in your environment that makes you feel afraid is going to light up and become more apparent to you, and it'll also become more real to you. So you're going to gather and collect evidence to support your unworthiness. Absolutely. Because you're in survival brain. When you're in survival brain, you're not connected. We've all been, with people who are stressed and worried, and they're not. You can tell that they're not with you. You can tell that they're not present with you. They're wrapped up in their heads. They're wrapped up in their nervous system. So it's getting into that calm sort of rest and digest nervous system that allows us to reactivate that ventral vagus, that most new, that most modern vagus part of our vagus nerve that allows us to socially connect. So we can feel people's presence, we can feel their tone of voice, we can feel their body language on a really felt sense, and then we regulate each other. And then when you regulate each other, you're much more likely to see the best in each other. If you're not regulated, you're much more likely to see the worst in each other. And this is how couples get into these sort of, fights that sometimes are irreparable, because they say things because they're in their survival brain that they're not aware of. So we need to be regulated first before we can learn. And once we get regulated and see that state is, then the things in our environment that look positive will come more into our focus. So basically, you'll believe it when you see it. You'll see it when you believe it, kind of thing. When you believe that you're calm and you're ready, those things will come into your vision. If you believe that other people are judging you, those things will come into your vision.
Thank you, Dr. Russ. Very valuable tidbits of information. I appreciate that. It's really, really critical stuff. Now let's get into this. This is where it gets a little juicy. So this is a paradox. It's a paradox. On one hand, people say, I don't give a shit what other people think. I don't give a shit what other people, screw it, screw what other people think. Now, there's a paradox. On one hand, should we care about what other people think? And on the other hand, should we not care about what other people think of us? At what level, when you just say, I don't give a damn about what other people think, do you become kind of sociopathic, right? Because we do have to actually, we have to coexist with one another, right? So do we completely say, I don't care what other people think of us? Or do we become so preoccupied that we put on a mask and we completely lose sight of who we are? Now, you got to understand there is a bit of a paradox, and there's a happy medium of it. And I want to explain to you a little bit how I've been able to navigate that. Now, it's not always perfect, and there's a work in progress. And what I've observed in this process is we're always graduating to greater levels of not giving a crap about what other people think. So in my life, it was all about, I want to make sure that I please my parents. And then when I chose my profession and I discovered, well, that's never going to work. They're always going to have something that they have a problem with. And once I transcended that, and I thought, okay, there was people in my career, within my profession, and my colleagues that were supporting me and challenging me. And then I transcended that, and then in the public with clients, well, there's support and challenge. So what I discovered is no matter what area that you expand into, there is always going to be a support and a challenge. And the transcendence happens when you can embrace both sides as a necessary component in your evolution. And the way that we do that is by understanding values. We are all governed by a set of values. And I want to thank Dr. John DeMartini, my mentor, who really introduced me to axiology, the study of values and worth. And the truth of the matter is that whether you're aware of it or not, you are governed by a set of values, and so is everybody else on the planet. And the interesting thing about values is whenever I see something that I perceive that supports my values, through my perceptions, I'm going to label it as good. Every time I see something in my perception, according to the filter of my values, I see it and it goes against my values, and I don't feel that it supports my values, it challenges my values, I'm going to label it as bad or evil. Now, anything that supports my values, I label it as good. Anything that challenges my values, I label it as bad. Now, here's how you overcome the fear of rejection according to values. How do you define great taste in music? How do I define great taste in music is my taste in music. How do I define great taste in clothes is my taste in clothes. So in other words, everybody is going to filter the universe based on their values. And the way that we overcome our fear of rejection is to dissolve our addiction to support and praise. I'm gonna repeat that. The way that we overcome our fear of rejection is to dissolve our addiction to support and praise. And the way that you understand this is when somebody is supporting you, they're not supporting you. They're supporting their perception that you are supporting their values. So whenever somebody is supporting you, it's not actually you that they're supporting. They're supporting what they perceive to be that you're supporting their values. Because the second that that same person perceives that you're no longer supporting their values and they see you and they say, oh, you're no longer supporting my values, they will withdraw their support. And if you allow that external support to feed you, when they remove that support, you will feel completely hopeless and rejected. It's a dangerous catch-22. So when the way that we overcome our fear of rejection is by dissolving our addiction to support and praise. When somebody is supporting and praising you, it's not you they're supporting and praising. It's the perception that in that moment, freeze-framed in time, you are supporting their values. And they'll support you if that's the case, if that's their perception. In that moment, because that same person, the moment that they perceive that you're withdrawing that support of their values, they will withdraw their support of you. And then you'll cry, and then you'll think, oh no, I'm not good enough, because you allowed their support, we allow their support to fill what's missing inside of us. So it's really important that you understand the mechanisms of values so that you don't get all high and mighty when you're getting support and admired. It's only the perception of that moment freeze framed in time that you are supporting their values. That's why they're supporting you. So it's wiser for you to understand that so that you're more resourced within yourself, because if I allow your support of me to get me so elated, in that moment I've dissociated from myself. And I've now made myself vulnerable that when you withdraw your support, that I now have like an addiction towards, I don't have resources. I completely lose it. I'm fly off the handle and I experience the emotional wound of rejection. So awareness is what's going to heal. This type of awareness is what will give you resource. The second part, the second way that you overcome somebody's rejection of you. Now you got to understand, there's sometimes people can get really mean, especially as Dr. Russ was talking about social media. We see this a lot. There's people out there that will start to attack you. They will attack you. They will actually try to take you down. I've experienced this myself. They will go out of their way and they will spew hate. They will post stuff online sometimes. If you've started to build a little bit of a following or you're making a difference in the world, you're gonna have people it's gonna piss them off. And instead of doing their own thing, they're likely going to go out of their way to try to take you down. Now, initially, this will hurt because you're a human being that it actually, that is affected physiologically from rejection, because it's an emotional wound that hasn't been resolved. I mean, if you do the intimacy upgrade work, you become a lot more resilient to it. However, if you haven't done it, you're gonna experience that. But I want you to know, here's the key. How to stop caring about what other people think is you must see through their ego. If somebody is being overtly mean and vindictive and vengeful, you have to understand that they're not in a good place. They're not in a good place emotionally. They're not in a good place in their lives. So you must see through that and really wish them well. Because somebody who's doing well in their lives isn't going out of their way to try to take other people down. And that's a fact. So if that's happening to you, please understand the people that are doing that to you are not in a good place, and you must see through their ego and see the wounded individual and have compassion for them. That's the only way to transcend this, because that type of vengeance and that type of cruelty is not done with a mentally healthy individual who is resourced within themselves. So see through their ego and have compassion towards them. Number 3, you must, after you've done that and you've heard feedback and somebody said something to you that really hurts, whether it's a parent, whether it's, clients, whatever, you must take a moment and resource yourself and give yourself everything, especially if you've done the work in the intimacy upgrade work. You now have resourced yourself and really seen and heard and empathized with who you are and understood who you are and connected with that little boy or little girl inside who felt rejected and resourced yourself. You must embrace the feedback and see what in it is true. What about it can I learn? Can I improve? And I remember there was a moment where I was starting my speaking career and I went and did a talk to a group of entrepreneurs. And after I stood there, and each and every one of them, there was about 15 of them, gave me feedback. And it was brutal. It was brutal. I remember feeling so defeated. I remember like my physiology kind of slumping over like this and just going out and saying, maybe I should just quit. Maybe this isn't really for me. But what happened was I swallowed my pride and I asked myself, what in what I was being told was true? Well, what I discovered was I was making the entire presentation about me rather than about my audience. I was over I was kind of like overselling myself rather than just over-serving and over-delivering. And as bitter as that pill was to swallow, it was the best damn thing that could ever happen to me, because I actually took it in. As painful as it was, I took it in, I embraced that pain, and I shifted my delivery, and I was set to speak the very next day, and I absolutely killed it, because I didn't make it about me, I made it about them. And you want to understand that some of the outside voices, you can't just say, no, 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 I don't want to hear it, screw everybody. Anybody who's F the haters, you might want to pay attention to what they're saying, because there's some gold in that feedback. And you want to take it in and realize that 50% of it is their shit, and the other 50% is probably right, especially if you've been hearing it again and again and again. And this is the grand battle with the ego that I literally am walking and dancing with each and every day, that you are called on to dance with each and every day, especially if you want your life to be based on worth something meaningful. You're gonna have to dance with that ego, because outside voices, when they are hurtful, it actually activates and triggers your dark passenger that thinks I'm not worthy of love. But the more I resource myself and the more I look in the mirror and say, I love you, Nima, and I can actually mean it, the less sting that feedback gives me, and the more I'm able to take it in and go, yeah, okay, thank you, thank you. And this is very, you know, what this reminds me of, Dr. Russ. What this reminds me of, Russ, is our relationship. Remember in the beginning of our relationship, when you would give me feedback, and I freaking hated it.
You hang up.
I would, yeah.
You get off the phone.
Screw you. All right, I gotta go. You would give me negative feedback, and I'd be like, look at the time. I gotta go, screw off. But really, I just didn't want to hear the feedback, right? And so I took this to heart. This is the thing. This intimacy upgrade is a program that we have, but it was done out of necessity. My message comes from my mess. And so as I started doing this, you would keep giving me feedback because you're that kind of a friend. You always want to see me grow. But I started taking it in a lot differently, didn't I?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the difference between how you take feedback starting about, 4 or 5 months ago compared to before, you know, and it wasn't harsh. Like I wasn't, the funny thing about it was I wasn't harshly criticizing you. I was just saying, you know, you can maybe consider doing this, or you can maybe consider doing that. And then usually the first stage was, you know, it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, all right, sure, I gotta go. And the phone will hang up.
But what I was thinking of was, fuck you, Russ.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to let you know.
And you wouldn't be the first one to think that.
I know.
You wouldn't be the first one to think that. I'm a bit of a know-it-all, you know. But what I've noticed is about 3 months. I've stopped doing this, but about 3 months ago, I would kind of go, here it is, and I'm not sure, and you'd be like, oh, okay, and genuinely say, well, can you tell me more about, like, with genuine curiosity? It wasn't like you were like, oh, through gritted teeth, you were like, okay, I got to find out about this. With genuine curiosity, you were saying, okay, how did that come across, and how could I make that better? So, and I don't have that feeling anymore. Like when I give you criticism now, it's just like it's just like something else that I'm saying.
It rolls off your tongue with the sweetness now.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, mostly. But I don't have that. I don't have that anticipation that you're gonna go like, ugh. I don't have to kind of sugarcoat it at all. I just kind of have to say, like, would you consider this? And you like, okay, well, tell me more about that. So that I can tell that your nervous system has been rewired around criticism. I can guarantee you that. And it's for me, it's been really a beautiful thing to see somebody really change, because a lot of times you see people go, yeah, I've changed, I'm different now, or whatever. But I can tell in your emotional resonance and stuff, when I say stuff to you, both positive and negative, the positive doesn't inflate you as much, and the negative doesn't drag you down as much. You're very curious. So I can tell that your nervous system has rewired around that. So, you know, you're walking the talk, my friend.
Thank you. It's a beautiful experience to be able to actually be so resourced and knowing who you are, that outside voices you use it for, like, you know, helping, you use it, even criticism, you're like, okay, it's feedback, Now here, I want to give a little kind of extra bonus for anybody who's listening, who really wants to take their kind of emotional badassery to the next level of worrying about criticism. What you want to do is you want to take, this is the thing, you want to write down the criticism about you that hurts the most, okay? So the criticism about you that hurts the most, for me, it was like, oh, his ego, right? I was ashamed to even say it, right? Oh, you have, Nima, you're a great guy, it's just, you got to worry about your ego. Like your ego's like off the chain here. So I couldn't handle that kind of feedback. So what I had to do was I actually sat down and I wrote down where that was actually true. And I owned it. And I owned it, and I saw that that wasn't the resource version of me when I'm full scale ego driving the bus. It's me when I'm dysregulated. It's me when I'm running a story about my unworthiness. It's me when I'm living in the past. So the interesting thing about this is that there's no finish line. I can go back to having the ego drive the bus tomorrow if I don't get enough sleep, if my nervous system is dysregulated, if I experience like a traumatic event, if I go through 4 or 5 days without meditating, exercising, eating well, sleeping, then my ego will drive the bus. I will be run by externals and back to square one.
Yeah.
So this work is never done. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, tell me, when you say I owned it, like what I see with you is that you saw the compassion. You had the compassion for yourself. Like people say, oh, you know what, I had that, I own that, and then that's how far it goes. When you own something, you talk a little more about, seeing yourself with compassion, seeing that part of you that does get hurt by that thing, isolating that part, and then coming alongside that part. That's what I see you doing.
Yeah, well, I own the part that, that's exactly what I do. I'm an egotistical jerk.
Sometimes.
Only on Tuesdays. When I am completely out of resource, when I'm completely triggered, and I haven't really done the work to resource myself, I'm literally run by externals. It's an ongoing work to get me, and so the key is, first of all, owning it. Most of us don't own it. When you don't own it, or you don't see that, that's a part of you, and that's okay, because, you can actually see that that's who you are as well, and that's the little boy, little girl version of you. Then it's unconscious.
And that's where the jabs comes in, right?
Yeah.
So that's when take that ego thing, take that hurt thing that you've written down and say, okay, where do I judge myself about this particular trait that I have? Where do I abandon myself? Where do I split from myself and leave myself in the lurch, where I have no emotional regulation? Because when you split from yourself, your nervous system goes crazy. Where do I blame myself about this? What have I done in the past and blame myself about it? And worse, the thing that drives it the deepest, where have I shamed myself over this? Where do you shame yourself over, when people used to say you're such an egotist? Because that's what drives it underground. That's what drives it into your nervous system. And I think, with the intimacy upgrade and a lot of your programs, I think what we do is we get people into this sort of, okay, how can we get the shames to come to the surface? Like, we've got people in our group that bring this up in this group, in this community, and it doesn't dissolve it completely, but it certainly, they have a chance to now regulate this nervous system, because this has been a rock in their shoe that they've been able to share for so long, and now they're able to share it, and people go, that's not so bad. I've done way worse than that.
Yeah. There's choice, exactly. And so it's owning it. Number one, owning it, and then reparenting that part of you and seeing the innocence of yourself. When I go full scale into ego, because when I judge and make myself wrong for it, it actually kind of promotes it, and it actually makes it worse. It actually causes a further downward spiral. So it's all about self-resource, self-empathy, and seeing that the innocence of yourself in those times, in the things that you're criticized about, which are a reflection of what's true for you. You know what I mean? It's like when you're criticized by something and you get completely triggered, there's a truth in it that you haven't really looked at. So first owning it and then reparenting and really seeing the innocence of yourself. So now if somebody were to call me that, I'd be like, yeah, it's exactly how I am. Right? I can totally be that way.
And that's what Gordon Neufeld talks about. You know, Dr. Gordon Neufeld, the developmental psychologist who wrote the book, Hold On to Your Kids. He talks about coming alongside of that part, you know, seeing that part of you that's hurt, and rather than judging or abandoning or blaming or shaming that part and separating from yourself, coming alongside that part and go, you know, I can see, you know, your traumas as a child, and I can see why you would do that, and you know, kind of meet their eyes as best you can, that younger version of yourself, and have a conversation, and in a way commiserate, say that must have been really hard for you when that happened, because then you're coming alongside, then you're actually starting to heal the neural networks on there that are really just flashing out into the abyss, because there's no connection there. And then when you connect to yourself, those shame connections now have a place of compassion to go. And now you have a route. It may start off as a dirt road, but then you develop, you know, you pave it, and then it becomes 2 lanes, then it becomes 4 lanes, you know, and you develop this other route to go, rather than just go into this automatic shaming of yourself. You go into this kind of like, oh, okay, you know, but this is part of me that you know, I've learned from, that I know now, and what you've done with your psyche, and you are able to take, you know, criticism or whatever just so much better now. Like, you've come alongside yourself, created that new pathway, whereas you would always go left into self-shame, and now you're kind of choosing to go right into, yeah, you know what, that was part of me that I'm trying to change. I understand, I accept, and I'm just trying to change it now.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Russ, I appreciate you being here and contributing once again. You are a true friend, a mentor, and we'll chat later.
Okay, man. See ya.
See ya. So here's the key. This is kind of like the bonus section, the bonus round, is that take everything that other people could potentially say about you, or that they have said about you that really triggers the crap out of you. And you want to make yourself trigger proof? Here's what you do. You write all of this is actually an exercise we do within our group, on our group calls, right? You write down everything that's been said about you that really triggers you, that you don't want to be called. And you, number one, find out where that's true. Where in my life is that true? Who sees that trait in me? And you want to start to understand where that comes from. Have a sense of understanding and empathic communication with the younger version of yourself that's acted that way, so that you can, as Russ just said, walk alongside of him or her, so that when somebody says anything to you, you're like, yeah, I'm a bitch too sometimes, exactly, and I love myself regardless. There's a power and a presence within that, and an unfuckwithableness that gets you to that state where anybody can say anything and you're not governed by externals. You're not running away from the criticism, and you're not running towards support and praise. You are present in yourself, and when the voice and the vision on the inside becomes louder and more profound than opinions on the outside, you've begun to master your life. That's what John DeMartini says. What I say is, you've all heard the term love like you've never been hurt, sing like no one can hear, and dance like no one is watching. Dance like no one's watching means kind of like, hey, just be free, because if someone were watching, I can't really dance. I can't really be myself, because why? I'm afraid of your judgment. But when you understand that you're a paradox, that you want to get to the place where you don't give a shit what other people think of you, and yet at the same time you care about what others say so that you can learn, and you want to be basically not be pendulum swinging too far to become a sociopath, that it is a paradox, that you have a set of values and so do other people, that other people are going to judge you based on those values, and if you say or do something that they perceive supports their values, they're going to give you one of these. If you say or do something that they perceive challenges their values, they're going to give you one of these, and there's nothing you can do to change that. So you might as well live according to your values anyway. And number three, the third point, which is number 2 here, is when somebody's really attacking you and cutting you down and talking shit, and it's just horrible, and they're being vengeful and vindictive, see through their ego. They are not in a great place. Have compassion for them. And number 3, embrace the feedback. What about what they're saying is true? What can I learn? How can I love that part of me that I've been not willing to see? Own it. The more that you can own, the more that you can love as part of you, because you are a light and a dark, you're a shadow and a light. You have both sides to you, just like anybody else, so do I. The more you can love your shadow and your light together, the more power you have, not force, but power you have to be unperturbed by externals. And putting it all together, I don't want you to dance like no one's watching. I want you to dance like you know that there's a million people watching and they're judging you, but you don't give a shit. That is the ultimate. That's the ultimate. Freedom of self-expression, a sense of power, not force, but power. Loving yourself, being able to look in a mirror and say, I love you. That's the ultimate. That is how you've had an intimacy upgrade. Your relationships, your career, your sense of purpose, your health, all depends on it. Once again, my name is Dr. Nima Rahmany. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I hope you got something meaningful out of it. Please let me know in the comment section. If you're not already a part of the Art of Powerful Alignment Facebook group, please join. Let me know if you have any questions whatsoever. Reach out, send me a DM if there's anything that you have been constrained about and you're ready to level up. Otherwise, we will see you at the next perfect time, exactly same time next week. Actually, we changed it 1 hour because of logistics, but it's around 12 noon Pacific time and it's 9 p.m. in Barcelona time, but we had to do it at 10. Normally it's 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Today we went 1 hour later because of logistics, but it's same time each and every week, and it's really dedicated to those who really want to up-level their relationships and their career, their sense of purpose, and therefore rippling into their health, transforming their families. That's why we're here on your journey. I'm grateful that you're having myself and Dr. Russ and our team to join you on your journey to becoming trigger-proof. See you at the next perfect time.